Hi, everybody, and welcome to Boost Live. My name is John Nelson, the plugin CEO of JKL Works and pluginbusiness.com and .net. I swear that's coming online at some point, but we're not here to talk about me. We are here to talk about and talk with, in his general direction, the other gentleman that you see on your screen. His name is Phil Ballier, and he is with Guided Growth Syndicate, owns Guided Growth Syndicate. Also is a big part of Atlas Growth Navigator and Atlas Agency Launch Lab. And did I miss any of those otherwise, Phil?
No, I think you got them all.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, for being a part of this today. We're going to ask him a lot of questions about alliances and joint ventures, which is something that we do talk about around here quite a bit. And or at least have recently, and before it was as evidence in a previous video that we put out there about white labeling and what Sheena Lee Kennerly calls partnerships, which I think is a great word, or collaborations. I mean, these have several different names and they take on several different, perceptions based on, kind of what's going on, or based on the need that it's the way the business is set up. So, for example, what you think of the business school definition of a joint venture is perhaps the same, but a little different when you start getting out into the real world and what it ends up looking like. Is it as formal a thing as, as a big, huge contractual deal as they would tell you joint ventures are? Or is it more like a partnership and a collaboration that, yes, does have some ground rules, yes, may have some contractual things, but is a lot looser definition, perhaps, than you might otherwise think. So we're going to talk about that today, because in the process of so one of the things that we do at JKL Works these days is we take certain businesses through something we call the Success Blueprint, and that is asking a lot of questions about your business and trying to find some strategies and some impacts and some ways that we can grow your revenue. We can grow and then grow your profits as a result, hugely grow your business, in fact. And so one of the ones, it's probably not the top, but in reading sort of the tea leaves of marketing and business collaboration and online businesses and how that world has kind of shrunk these days. Alliances and joint ventures, I don't know about you, Phil, but they seem to be they seem to be kind of where it's going in a way. And so during his blueprint that he was gracious enough to let me do on his business, we were talking a lot about alliances and joint ventures. And so I asked Phil to come on and really share this with you guys as an opportunity of a business that is actually trying to implement this. And the really the high hopes that are involved there. So I guess first of all, I don't think there's any other projects that you're involved in outside of that you wanted to put in a quick plug for, outside of Guided Growth Syndicate, Atlas Growth Navigator, and then the Launch Lab, right?
No, those are the three main focuses of my attention right now.
All right. So when we talk about alliances and joint ventures and white labeling, what's your general, how do you want to, you were telling me that you kind of want to do this in your business. So what is your general plan to do that, I guess, your strategy?
Yeah, so this all kind of came about, just to give you guys a brief history. Before I started the Guided Growth Syndicate, I did freelance copywriting and freelance sales closing. And I kind of found there's a little bit of a distrust maybe with freelancers in the business world. Maybe people have been burned by them in the past or whatever. That's not to say all freelancers are bad. Please don't, I'm not dealing with a broad brush here, but I just found that there was a little more resistance. So I decided to go the route of opening up. And to do that, there's a lot of different facets running an agency and a lot of different products and knowledge that you would need. And it occurred to me real quick that I need this. So I decided to put together teams of people that have expertise in areas that I'm very weak in. And I kind of found that it was almost more rewarding and almost more profitable to find work for others than it was to find it for yourself, because you're still, at the end of the day, you're still getting a piece of it because you're putting this alliance together. It's still working in your favor. But it's easier to promote somebody else than it is to say, hey, hire me. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. What kind of led you to that conclusion? I mean, as you were working through this and thinking about setting it up.
Honestly, it was just speed. I had a second child on the way, and I needed to make some quicker income. And
right,
one of the ways to do that is to leverage. Use leverage. And if you have other people that are good at different things, use your skill set, stay in your lane, and use that to benefit the people that you're putting around you. And it kind of takes care of itself.
Okay. Did you have any other companies or businesses or organizations or things that were sort of a model for this that you saw that inspired you to do it, kind of?
Yeah. So I went through the Atlas Agency Launch Lab before I started partnering with it, and Sheena really drove home the CEO mindset, and that was sort of a come to Jesus moment for me, because there was this idea that you have to know everything before you outsource it.
Right.
That, to me, is a fallacy. I think you're better off outsourcing it while you learn it, because even if you outsource it to the wrong person and you don't get the results that you want, you've at least gained knowledge to know that this is not the right way to do it. So that CEO mindset kind of put in place for me that, hey, I don't have to be the expert in every field and every facet. I can find people that are, and I can work with them towards a common goal. And that really became the objective, was to build that common goal and to make something that's profitable for everybody in that circle.
Okay. I'll cut you out there for a second. I went back and looked at I don't know what happened. I apologize. Okay. But let's do it this way. Get all technical issues, right? But still good answers. And yeah, that's I didn't want to disclose that unless he did. That Phil is not only as the commercial goes, not only influential in the management of Atlas Agency Launch Lab, but he was also a client. He was also a student going through it, and that's actually where that's where we got to meet a little bit as I was working through that, setting it up. And in truth, Atlas Agency Launch Lab is intended to be that collaboration model, right, of these different experts for the people who really want to grow their agency. And it's still there. And they grow their agency because of these different people that are out here, trying to work and trying to make it happen, lending their expertises to the larger sum. It just kind of, for me, really sums up what an alliance is all about, or a joint venture is all about. So how did you determine which, I guess you have determined at this point which services that you want to outsource some services. How did you determine that? Which ones you wanted to outsource, or that you wanted to outsource in the first place?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, I put together an offer recently, and I put together a team around it, and it was largely based on the people in the Atlas Growth Navigator and their specific skill sets. And can we utilize this efficiently so that we can help our clients, and we can all do what we love to do. So we have web developers, we have people that run Google Ads, we have people like you that help them find lost revenue in their businesses and stuff like that. So we can really offer this full service model. And that's really key when you're talking to entrepreneurs. It's one of the first things I found when I was freelancing. They want to save time. They're not so much worried about money. It's all about saving time. And when I started out as a freelance copywriter, sometimes I'd get calls, hey, I need a website or something. Okay, well, it'll be X amount for the copy. Okay. But I need a website. Yeah, well, you're going to have to find a web developer. oh, well, I don't want to like
Mhm.
why would I go to two different people? So I learned real fast
Right.
that it's better to have that group together, and you put together a core offer, and then you upsell them on the different areas, of the expertise that's in your circle. So you're constantly looking to expand that circle, and you're constantly
Mhm.
looking to push the expertise that they have in order to serve that client, and also make sure that that circle stays profitable.
And full disclosure, you kind of mentioned this whenever we were initially talking, doing the blueprint. And that's one of the things that really resonated with me is that, these not only the entrepreneurs, but I mean companies in general, that's why marketing agencies exist, is
Mhm.
to sort of be, the more they can serve, but the trick is the higher quality they can serve with that more, not just more, that they do a consistently good job. It's like a well you can keep going back,
And
all
I
the
think,
time,
yeah,
right?
and that's the huge difference between building that network and the partnerships and alliances, as opposed to finding employees. Because if I was going to
Hmm.
find an employee that does web design, if I was going to find an employee that helps them trim the fat off their budget or whatever, I have to
Hmm.
look at it from a budgetary standpoint, and I have to find somebody that's willing to work at a rate where I'm still profitable. And
Right.
so they're coming in, they're probably not necessarily getting the best of the best. This way, when you're putting together joint ventures and alliances, it's not just my agency, it's your agency, it's their agency, it's so and so's agency, and you got
Hmm.
5 or 6 different agencies coming together that all have their specialized area where they work, and so the client is really getting the best possible service they can. So the client's happy, that means everybody's making money, and then we
Right.
move on to the next offer, the next client. And I just think it's very efficient.
How do you determine which services to add to that group, or which services you go seek? Is it just this is what we need at the time, or is there kind of some strategy involved in picking the ones that are maybe in the most demand, or how does that work?
It's a little bit of both. You kind of think about who you want to target, and then when you think about your avatar, you look at that, you build out that avatar, and when you do that,
Mhm.
you're going to see real quick what their needs are. And then you look at the
Right.
people in your circle who can fulfill those needs, and you make that the
Mhm.
core offer. And then you look at what some of the secondary needs that avatar would have. And then you look back in your circle again, and you find other people who have those secondary skills. Well, they're not secondary skills to the people that have them, but I mean to the avatar, you know what I mean? And
It's
then
not well, it's not the main reason that they came to you in the first place, but it happens to be an ability that you can, a need that you can fill with these
right.
people.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So then you use that as an upsell, and then
mhm.
from there you can look at it and go, okay, well, I want to involve these people that are doing the secondary, the upsells. I want to involve them a little more. So
Yeah.
you can take their skill set and you can find an avatar based on that. So you can flip
Right.
it around, right? You can do it one way, and then you can do it the other way. So
Well,
you're putting together two different offers.
right. And I was thinking, circling back to a point you made a minute ago about, if for some reason, you come across a different client that doesn't need a website or doesn't need whatever, you're not locked in like as if you had an employee or this huge contractual obligation. You just say, hey, we don't need you on this project, but we'll bring you on another one. I would think that's kind of a benefit as well, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
If
And
there's
and
if there's something you don't need at the time,
And you gotta
but you
you
may
gotta
need
think
later.
too, like I'm talking about putting this offer together, but these other agencies are also putting offers together. And in
Hmm.
my case, I specialize in the sales process. I love doing the sales closing. I enjoy having that conversation with people. So
Right.
we're putting together an offer, and they need sales closing for that. They're going to call me because
Hmm.
I've brought them into my offer for these different things. So it works both ways. So you're generating offers, they're generating offers, and you're all kind of sharing in the wealth here.
Right. I was going to ask something because we've talked about that, and then I've talked in other lives about the concept of vertical prospecting. Who is in your food chain, who's in your supply chain, that everybody benefits because you're all bringing each other business. you know, for various aspects of what you do and leveraging what you do. You know, they could say, you know, hey, I know somebody who is a you know, seems to be a general problem solver for a lot of things, and is really good at sales, and you guys need that as I'm designing your website, so you're going to need some sales help. So you know, maybe come back to Guided Growth Syndicate or whichever you know, entity you're running that under. So I would think that'd be a huge benefit.
Yeah,
And
it really is.
Actually,
It's very
kind of one of my questions there. You beat me to it. Do you envision this concept growing for your businesses as we kind of move along?
I do. I think this is quickly becoming a core principle of mine. It's the way that I enjoy doing things. And I just think it makes the most sense, because if you really stop and think about it, your superpower, whatever you're really good at, that's where you're going to make the most money. And people always talk about outsourcing, right? They always talk about you get to a certain level and maybe you get a VA to answer your emails or answer your text messages or something like that, you know?
Right.
And then you move up again, and then you get somebody else to do this. You're always looking to replace yourself, you know, so that you can focus on the thing that makes you the most money. And this model allows you to do that, even if you're not, you know, at bringing in $100,000 a month or whatever, because you're forming alliances and you're working with different people. So you don't have to, you can do it right from the get-go, and you can stay in your lane, and you can do what you're best at, and you can make money quicker.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. And the only thing about this topic in general is that there's a lot of crossover between the concept of, to me anyway, between the concept of alliances and joint ventures and partnerships and collaborations. And I to some extent those are just words, but in others they're not. There are some differences to them, at least that has been explained to me and that I've tried to pass on to others that are a little different. So a lot of what we're talking about to me seems to be like, but though the argument could be made anyway. So, but a lot of what we're talking about to me seems to be, you know, like a collaboration or you know, a partnership, a group of people. But then the argument also could be made that it's an alliance. But what I try to look at, what we try to talk about, is the alliance would be like, for one of a better example, the Chamber of Commerce. Or the, you know, it's groups that come together, or companies that come together for, you know, a certain goal. And you know, yet there's a model like this that really, you know, can fit that bill in some ways. So is this something, you know, talking about, you know, instead of directly working with 2 or 3 people and, you know, keeping them around on a regular basis, do you think there's a place in marketing and in business for, you know, a larger group, something like that, or a trade organization, or a, you know, something that comes together for that kind of that common purpose? And do you see your companies being a part of that?
So there can be, but there can be a fine line. It can get too big and too unwieldy.
Right.
You know, so I tend to look at it from a much smaller perspective. I look at it simply, if I'm putting together an offer and I'm outsourcing X, Y, and Z, you know, I'm the offer owner, and I'm using these other companies as contractors to an extent, you know,
just you're bringing them into your deal, kind of, right?
Yeah, just like if you were to put an offer together and you needed a sales closer and you brought me in, it would be your offer. You would be subcontracting that sales closing to me, you know. But it really, you know, we're talking, it's a little different in the sense that we're not going to Fiverr or Upwork or something. We're talking about people that you've built a personal relationship with, and you can trust them to a much further extent than you can, you know. Case studies and all that are nice, but it's so much better to know that person, you know, and have that that relationship with them. So when you're talking,
or if you did pull those people from a Fiverr or Upwork, it's, you build that relationship with them over time, and then they or through, through proven work, and it does turn into something that's more like what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So it can go either way.
Yeah, it's not that you can't pull them from there, but I was just using that and saying, like, instead of hiring a stranger, it's somebody.
Right.
That
your point is perfectly valid. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea of, taking it to where you have sort of like a chamber of commerce type model where you can have thousands of people in there, to me, that just gets a little, I mean, I understand the benefit of it, because now you can essentially say, hey, I need help with this, and you're going to have 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 people saying, hey, we can do this, but I don't know how you have that relationship with that many people.
Well, you don't, and but the same token, that could be a group of 100, companies.
Correct. Yeah, you could keep it small. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, they can get too big and too unwieldy. I mean, you see that with a lot of, very well-intentioned things over time, and at the risk of mentioning some of those and getting people upset. I mean, some of them have sort of outlived their usefulness, but they can't slow down. They have to somehow keep going.
Right.
And they have gotten too unwieldy and not even what their intention was at the time whenever they were formed, for perfectly valid reasons. But that doesn't, mean that, it couldn't be an alliance of, 200 digital marketing companies, or your local BNI group, as it's put down, even though that's a paid engagement to go be a part of. It's still sort of the same idea, and a good prospecting. But so I'm guessing you're kind of seeing where the collaboration, the partnership, the more personally developed relationship, and that turn into a small group. Are you kind of seeing more of a future in that than something like a little bigger alliance, or even a big contractual joint venture sort of thing? Are you kind of seeing where that's seeing that is coming as a good strategy going forward?
Well, I think, I just prefer to keep things kind of the simpler the better,
Right.
So I prefer to
Makes life easier anyway.
Yeah. I just prefer to base it around the offer, and it's not, you can have a group of 200 people or whatever, and that's fine, but it's just real simple for me. I just base it around the offer, and those are the people that I bring into the group, but that said, I'm still constantly talking to different people. I'm still constantly trying to meet different people and learn about different people, and seeing where there could be some synergy or a good fit for us to work together, maybe in the future, and things like that,
Right.
So,
an offer to me denotes purpose. What's your purpose for being together in this particular instance, and that, like you said, it may not work for everybody, but if you have the purpose is the offer, and you're coming together for this reason, to fulfill this offer. And some will be able to do that, and some won't be able to do that, and there's no point of having 5 web designers, companies, in a particular situation, when only one, maybe 2 will do, and the one is a backup.
And I would prefer I'd prefer to go so far as, if it gets to that point where you have to scale like that and you need to bring others in, I would prefer the specialist in that area to bring other people in, because they would know more what to look for than I would. Just like if we got to a point where we had to bring in extra sales closers, I would handle that part. If we had to bring in other web developers, I would want the initial company that I partnered with in this venture to bring in and manage those other web developers. So it becomes more of a structured setup.
Okay. I agree. Now I want to circle back to something we were talking about a few minutes ago, about how do you choose the people that you would enter into a relationship with? How do you do it? If we're looking at possibly doing this as sort of a business model, I mean, as a not a bit, but a business model. Excuse me. How do you enter into those relationships with, or how do you choose those people? Excuse me a second.
Sure. So I have the
Ooh, sorry.
luxury of being part of the Atlas Agency Launch Lab and the people that come and go through there. So I get to meet
Uh-huh.
different people at different stages of their journey, and I get to talk to a lot of different people one on one, and I get to know what they're about, and where they want to specialize, what they're good at, and all of that. So I tend to leverage that in my decision making. I realize that there's
Okay.
a lot of people that maybe aren't in that position, but I'm lucky enough to have that option in front of me, so I utilize it to its fullest extent.
But what resonates with you about that person, or that company? I mean, what is, as you look at an individual, is it, other than having that shared opportunity with something like an Atlas Agency Launch Lab? How do you sort of look at them and go, okay, they could be really a good fit here, or I get it. They're, and I'm picking on web designers, but it's an easy target. Um, the if somebody is, how do you choose one web designer over another? Or in my case, everybody's a go high level expert in my group. So how do you choose one or the other?
For me, it has to do a lot with just, do I get along with them on a personal level? Sheena
Uh-huh.
likes to talk a lot about like when you're picking clients, and this is the thing that a lot of people get wrong. They sit down for a sales call and they think the client's vetting them, and it should be the other way around. You should be vetting the prospect to make sure they're
I
a
think
good
it goes
fit
both
for your
ways,
client.
honestly.
Well,
I
it
mean,
does, but I mean, a lot of
yeah.
people miss that part where they should be vetting the prospect is what I'm saying here,
Right,
and
right.
and like Sheena likes to talk about, somebody told her if they wouldn't go to the pub and have a beer with them, they're not a good prospect to be a client. And in some ways, I mean, it sounds trivial, but in some ways that's really a litmus test for joint ventures and things like that, because if you can't get along with
Yeah.
the person, you're going to have a hard time working with them. So you
Well,
want
and
to
it
make
gets
sure
it
that,
gets worse when you get into a contractual relationship with them, right? I mean, if
yeah.
you of some form, if you bind that somehow with a contract, and you've picked somebody who may have seemed good in the beginning, but turns out to be a total ass to work with and is very inflexible, then what have you done?
And then it
So,
becomes, you really start, some trust issues develop there, because it's human nature. You start to see everything that person does in a negative light and a negative view, and you just
uh-huh,
you don't want that energy around your business.
for
So
sure.
you I mean, it sounds almost like stupid simple, but it's true. You got to get along with them.
Yeah, no, I think that's important, especially when you're talking about credibility, between each other. So, I mean, how can you ensure that, we're talking about accountability a little bit, because that's a very understated yet very important part of this whole thing, is accountability for everybody. Uh, but how could you ensure that you get good performance out of them, that they do what they say they're going to do, and they're holding up their end of the relationship?
We hold weekly meetings. I'm a big fan of that. They're not super long. It's just,
Hmm.
we have minutes from the last meeting and tasks moving forward. It's almost like a week in review type thing. What
Yeah.
went well, what didn't go well, what do we still need to do,
Okay.
and we all kind of go over it. And then, and let's be honest, like, you're not always going to pick the right person, even,
Yeah.
even if you get along, so you can still run into issues. None of this is foolproof. This is all still,
Sure. Sure.
so that's one of the ways to kind of make sure everybody's staying on task. And
Mhm.
if you're the offer owner in this scenario and you find that somebody's dropping the ball a lot for whatever reason, even if they're good intention, maybe they fell ill or something like that, and they can't,
Right.
you should have somebody that you can slide in there to give them help as a backup, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. Because at the end of the day, it's still on you to get that offer out there.
True, true. And you would also hope, that this is, I've been in both positions, and in my time, but you would hope that they would say, the person who's supposed to be holding up their end, if they're not, for whatever reason, circles back and says, you know what, I set up to do this, I want to do it, but it's just not working out. let me see if I can help you, fix this situation, get out of the situation that I've partially caused, So it is, I think that's is important. And that's a business maturity skill that, one, you don't always see at the time, and not everybody masters it well. We're focused in our own lane, and that's one of those that, until you've been through it, and you on either side, and you'll once you have, you'll look at it differently. But in the throes of it, that's a lesson you hope somebody picks up sooner rather than later, if for some reason they're not going to be a part of that situation. So, to your thought as the offer holder, how do you reassure them that you're holding up your end?
Some leadership skills come into play there. I mean, you're the one that sets the meetings. You're the one that sets the goals and the agenda.
Right.
And you need to make sure that, you're leading by example, on that you're holding up your end and you're doing what you said you were going to do first. And you have to be available if something comes up, if they have issues, they need to be able to contact you, and you need to be able to handle it, or, possibly help them find help, that kind of thing. So it's a matter of being reliable to the people on your team. You're the captain of the ship at that point.
Right. And how do you think businesses, I guess in general, should, and this, I wrote this question before you brought up the thing about being the offer holder, which is brilliant on your part. But it's how do you think businesses should contribute, or how do you think they should in general, contribute to the situation? I guess it's kind of what we're talking about. I'm sort of answering my own question. as we pulled everything in here, in that, this is, if we're going to set this up as a structure for doing business, there has to be accountability on both sides. Would you say?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that I do, I build out the offer, and I look at all the different facets of it and what needs to be completed in order for the client to be satisfied. And I look at, what am I doing? And then, the steps that everybody else is taking. And I try to build out the percentages and things like that. And then I present it to them, and I ask them, do you want to be part of this? And if they don't, they don't. There's no hard feelings. We'll move on to the next person, but, if they want to be part of it, usually they're very excited. And, that's what you want, because if you're putting an offer together and you're not excited about it, you did something wrong. You should be ecstatic about the offer that you're putting together.
Sure.
So, and
or being a part of the offer, if you're the one that's being pulled into it, oh man, this is a great opportunity.
Yeah. If you don't feel that way, it's not the right offer for you. If you don't believe in it for whatever reason, and it's real tempting, especially if you're starting out, oh, well, I need the money. Well, yeah, you do need the money, but you also, you need that satisfaction, because that satisfaction comes before the money. It's really weird the way your mind works, but if you're not fully engaged in it, you're not going to get the most out of it, and you're not going to be profitable, and you're going to drag the rest of the team down with you. So, from my perspective, when I'm presenting this offer to potential potential allies, they'll look at it, and I can tell immediately, if they're really excited about it, they're probably going to be a good fit, because they're going to, it's going to be near the top of their to-do list. And we're hopefully not going to have any issues other than the typical things that arise, that you solve for. But that's one of the ways I gauge it. I look at how excited are they to be part of this.
Okay, that's wise. I like that. Where do you think this is, the concept of alliances, joint ventures, collaborations, partnerships? There needs to be an acronym somewhere here. I know
there does. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a good one, so I just going to go with there needs to be one, and I'm not that imaginative. But kind of where do you rank this concept in your business, as far as where that's at? How important is this to your business?
For me, it's vital. It's it's a core principle of mine. I really prefer to do things this way because I can't be an expert in everything. And we've been picking on web developers through this whole live. So I'm going to pick on them again here. And I don't know much about it. I can build out a landing page. It's not going to be very pretty, but if we're talking about a client, you want it to be the best it could possibly be. And I can't
exactly. Yeah.
So I need somebody that can. And there are two options then, right? I can go and I can find somebody that already knows that skill, or I can spend however long it would take to become an expert in that particular field before I go and put an offer out. And when you think about the time that it would take you to do it, and then the fulfillment time, right? Because now you're talking about, you get clients, now you got to fulfill that, So you look at the time that it's taking you to do all of that. If you had other people that were already skilled in that area, you can give them that portion of it, and you can move on to the next deal. And they're happy because they're making money getting clients handed to them. You're happy because you're moving on to the next deal, and that client's being satisfied, by the skills of the other person. So,
but to your standards, they're being for what you envision the project to be. You can have confidence that it's being fulfilled that way.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's so where do you see this kind of, being a part of your business and say in 5 years? What do you see this concept doing to your business in 5 years?
I think this is, it's hard to say. I mean, I think this is still going to be a major part of it. Because I mean,
you mentioned it's a core value, so I mean, I would think it's right up there with it, right?
Yeah, and I have a passion for helping other people build their agency. Like I said in one of the lives I did, I don't even remember if it was for Atlas, if it was for GG. I don't remember where I said it, but I come from a 9-to-5 background. I used to work in biomed, and there's nothing wrong with people having a job. I want to be very clear about that. But it was never for me. I was never wired that way, and I had a job for most of my life. It was only in the past 3 years that I've started doing this and being an entrepreneur. And I love it so much to the point that I'm almost evangelical in this,
right.
With the passion that I have for it. So when I see people that are just starting out, or they want to, they're really good at something, but they don't know how to monetize it. I almost reflexively want to help them do that because, to me, everybody should be an entrepreneur. I understand there's a need for people to have jobs, and I understand there are people that want jobs, for whatever reason, and that's fine. But just the way that I'm wired, and having lived in that 9-to-5 world for so long when it wasn't the right fit for me, it's almost like they say ex-smokers are the worst. When somebody comes in and they were smoking and you can smell it on them, ex-smokers, yeah, and that's kind of how I feel about it. So it's just, I'm just so passionate about seeing other entrepreneurs succeed, and for me, this is a way to do that.
And a marketing seems to be, predisposed to that a lot. I mean, not to take away from what any of us do, because this is kind of a unique situation, because I came from yes, it was a business ownership, but in many ways it was also a 9-to-5. It was kind of both background. So, I mean, I've had enough to go to the job and then come home, and then, it doesn't, and then you sort of leave that behind for the evening and you do your other things. And so there's a place for that. But I think marketing in general is one of those situations that there's not as big a barrier to entry to say as being a doctor or even an engineer or a nurse or something like that. I mean, there's a bigger barrier of entry there because you got to go through, you may have some raw skill, but you've got to go through the training, and you've got to go through the setups and to learn what you're supposed to do. And, when things happen, marketing isn't necessarily that way. If you have some raw talent, it's easier to bring it in, but you still should, sit at the feet of some people who are like in most business, sit at the feet of people who are successful and learn what they do, and try to sort of take that and don't directly copy it, as a lot of, us coaches would have you do, but sort of make it your own, but based off of their success. Do you think marketers in general and this digital marketing industry are, and understand, I mean, 6 years ago when I discovered this, I realized all the things in business that I was not doing well when I discovered digital marketing in general. Even though it was, I was already designing a website, a flyer, and other digital marketing things, and nobody ever put it together for me until that point. But do you think digital marketers are more predisposed maybe to the concept of a collaboration or partnership than other industries?
Yeah, I do, because I think it makes more sense, because there's so many different elements that go into it. There's web design, there's copy, there's the sales process, and sales and marketing, those are two different skill sets. And
Right.
So when you
And
talk
even operations too, even fulfillment of it's one thing to sell it, it's another to provide that ongoing customer service.
right, and then you have the bookkeeping aspect of it, the back office stuff. And I'm fortunate. My wife has a bachelor's in business and finance, along with her master's degree in OT. And because I'm the guy, when I go to the ATM, if I'm plus or minus $60 to the number that's in my head, to me, the checkbook is balanced. But you can't do that.
Me too sometimes.
Yeah, and you can't do that when you're running a business. You need to keep all that stuff. And, so my wife handles a lot of that back office stuff for me. And when you're talking about doing something like this, you have to have all those boxes checked. And so you need people that have those different skill sets. If you try to learn it all yourself, I got some well-meaning but bad advice when I first started out. And they were saying, make sure you learn everything about your business. And I understand where that comes from. Like, you really should, but I think there's a caveat there. You need to learn everything about your business from a 30,000-foot view, right? You don't need to be the expert in the granular minutia of what goes on. That's where
always need to dive in the details,
that's where the experts come in. And that's why you build these alliances and stuff like that, so that they can handle that stuff. And you just need to know whether or not they're doing a good job. You don't need to know how the sausage is made. You just need to know it tastes good.
Yes, there is that analogy. Yeah. And it's very true. My wife is huge into customer service. I mean, to the point of, if she gets bad customer service, she is fanatical about it and gets upset, because she has had to do customer service for, years and years and years in various jobs. And it's, we talk about developing things a lot, and I, share with her what I'm doing here, but, she is always quick on the back end to say, are you serving your customers well? Are you able to serve your customers well after the sale? Because that's just as important, because that's what helps that relationship grow. Where do you see kind of alliances, joint ventures, partnerships, all that for the marketing industry in the next few years? Do you think this is something that's going to be more or less a part of, part of the landscape?
I think it's going to be huge, because you're going to see, ever since COVID, there's a lot of people that were able to work from home, and they got used to being able to work from home. And now they're being told more and more to go back to the office. And a lot of people don't want to do that. A lot of people want to work from home, and you can't go to Facebook. I mean, I know we're in the industry, so you and I are going to see a lot more material than maybe others would, but there's always ads for this kind of thing, whether it's copywriting or sales or whatever. And it's always, work remote, and it always paints the dream, right, of people sitting on a beach with their laptop and their Mai Tai, right, what they're doing, so people get this idea in their head. Especially in the Northeast, where I'm from originally, you have a bad winter day, with the freezing rain and stuff like that, and you're going out to your job and you're coming home.
You want to be at a beach somewhere. Yeah.
Exactly. So it really speaks to that crave that people have for freedom, and I think sometimes they make it seem a little too easy, because there's a lot of groundwork that you have to lay to build that foundation to be able to get to that point. And that's where I think a lot of people get lost. They get lost in building that foundation. But the point is, I think we're going to see more and more of this, and I'm not worried about it. I don't, there's so many businesses out there, and with the way the internet is and everything, the world is getting smaller and smaller, and we're connecting with, so there's
really
billions
is, yeah.
of businesses out there. There's always going to be room for one more person that can do this, one more person that can do that. So
right.
I think we're gonna see a lot of people get into it, and I just look at it, to me, it's not competition. To me, it's more potential partners. So I'm really excited about that.
Okay. I am too. It's something that, I agree with you that this is not always reflected as it should be. This entrepreneurial life, and there have been, lives from friends of ours that talk about, okay, what is it? And I've done blog posts in the past, but what is, how do you know if you're an entrepreneur? How do you know if you're not an entrepreneur? It's not for everybody. It is, and they're going to find them. That's what's so exciting about this is people are going to find themselves at some point where they need an expertise or a skill they don't have. And you said it earlier, I can go get that skill if I want to go invest the time, or I can hire it done quicker. And so to me, this is not the most important aspect of, doing business now and going forward, but it's pretty close. This whole concept of bringing in the skill sets you don't have and managing those skill sets for the times that they're there. So I appreciate your wisdom on this. This is good to see, for where other people are taking this, so they're not just hearing me saying it.
There's always time to make more money. There's always time to make more money. And the thing is, money is an infinite resource. There's so much of it out there. Time is finite. So I will spend money to save time. I will not spend time to save money. I won't do it.
Yeah. And the other thing about entrepreneurship, I don't know if this has been your experience or not, Phil, but you spend far more time working on the business than you ever thought you would. It came up for me a little bit ago when you were talking about, sitting on the beach, and how that's really not the case as an entrepreneur.
No, there's a joke that entrepreneurs are the only people that'll work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week. And
that's true.
It is
so true.
But there's two key differences that I think a lot of people miss with that. And the first one is that when you're talking about an entrepreneurial lifestyle, there is that foundational part that I mentioned earlier that a lot of people fail to lay, so they just think, like we're talking about, oh, you just go to a beach with a laptop, whatever, but there's so much groundwork that you got to put in,
Right.
But once that is done, once you get the momentum rolling, it's not that you don't have to work as hard, because one, you become an expert at what you're doing. So naturally, the effort that you put into it decreases because you're good at it now. So you don't have to try as hard to get the same results.
It just makes everything easier because it flows easier because you did your homework in the beginning. Yeah,
exactly. So, and that's the difference with entrepreneurs. We're working 80 hours a week now, so that later on we can work 20 hours a week. And still bring in that same money. But there's that's the part that they don't tell you about in those Facebook ads and stuff. It's those 80-hour weeks when you're trying to get to that 20-hour week,
For sure. I mean, I'm having to spend a lot of time doing that now, redoing the system. So I was, because I was just a digital marketer to me anyway, and didn't seem to stand out in any way, and then came across a whole new set of opportunities that really do help me to, in my mind, to stand out. And also it brings in concepts that have come and gone out of my life over the past 25 years. So, I mean, this whole business optimization thing is where I'm choosing to put everything. And then I surround myself with, people like you and Sheena Lee and Zach and Jen and Chris and some of the other people in our little tribe here that are doing good work in their own particular lanes and we're all sort of we're running the race at the same, on the same track, just in different lanes together. And, we can always look over at each other and pull the other one up as we slow down. And so
exactly,
it's what makes this huge. And speaking of Zach, with a nod to our friend Zach Kinnerly, I believe both of us have been a part of his live stream conversations. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take a question from him. So, was there any question you wished I would have asked you today, or
Oh,
topic you wished we would have discussed?
well, well
If
done.
not, don't worry about it. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had the same reaction. I'm like, I don't know.
yeah. No, that's no. I mean, the Eagles signing Saquon Barkley was pretty huge, but other than that, no, I think we covered everything.
Oh yes, true to form. You seem to not go through a live without a sports reference. Good on you, man. Good
Yeah, I
on you.
can't help it. Yep.
For sure, for sure. Especially Philadelphia stuff, right?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
we won't talk about baseball since the Phillies and my Astros seem to go at it in several World Series from time to time. So
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens next year. I think both teams have a good shot again.
yeah, they might. We'll see how that works. So I was kind of looking for any other questions here that people had, and I don't really see any. So hopefully this has been helpful for everybody. Do you want to kind of get in a plug for some final thoughts here on what you're before you do that? Actually, before I just full disclosure, Atlas Growth Navigator is going to be helping me with my prospecting as we get things going here. We've already got that underway. They're waiting on me, frankly, to get everything done, I think. So, but I'm appreciative of that. So, is there any services that you want to get in a plug for, Phil?
Yeah, I think you know, the Atlas Agency Launch Lab, and John, you kind of alluded to it at the beginning. I'm not also a member, but I was also a client, and to me there was before the Launch Lab and after the Launch Lab,
Mm-hmm.
in with respects to um, how I handle things, and how I move along, and there was a definite shift in my success ratio because of that. And
Mm-hmm.
I would really strongly suggest, depending on where you are in your agency journey, if you need the tools and the support around you to kind of go to that next level, I would really strongly suggest looking at the Atlas Agency Launch Lab for that. I think it could be very beneficial in helping you
And
get to that next step.
they've been kind of low key, but they're still here. It's still here making a big impact. And I know your answer to this will be kind of biased because, like we said, you were a student and now you're you're a major part of the team. Whereas I was contributing part of the team, but I was never a student. So what was it for you about that experience of going through there that sort of flipped the switch, that you said there was life before Atlas Agency Launch Lab and afterwards? So just as a plug from a student's perspective, what concepts kind of shifted it for you that made it worthwhile and worth the investment?
Yeah, so two things. One of the biggest things was I've been through other coaching programs before, and this is not a knock on them. I've learned a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
they give you the knowledge and then off you go, into
Yeah.
the great, and this was different because, I would tell Sheena, hey, I got a sales call coming up. Because I was like, oh my God, I actually got a sales call. I was like proud of myself. I landed
Mm-hmm.
a
Sure.
prospect there.
This
And
stuff
then,
does work. Wow.
yeah, not but she would jump on the call with me. No,
Uh-huh.
nobody's ever done that before, so she would
Yeah.
jump on the sales call with me to kind of help me land a client and stuff like that. So there was that learning in real time and that support,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're first starting out, sales calls can be intimidating.
Oh yeah,
You
for
get this,
sure.
like, I need this business, but you don't want to come off too desperate. It's like trying to dance with the girl, and so you don't want to come off too desperate, but at the same time, you don't necessarily know what you're doing because you don't have the experience. So having
Mm-hmm.
that person there to support you with that, and that willingness to go that extra step. I've never had a coach that was willing to do that. And that's
For
something
sure.
that, I've taken, and I've really driven that home. And it's something that I do with these alliances. I'm not jumping on sales calls with them. They don't need my help with that, but I mean, if they do, I would. It's really.
But it's sometimes as a sales closer aspect of this, I mean, that's something you can step in with them. I mean, sales is one of your skills, but for some of these other people going through it, it's sales is not their skill,
right?
And they still have to do it.
Yeah, and that's something I took from there, and I just and there was you mentioned tribe earlier. There was just this connection kind of right from the get-go with everybody that was involved in it, and I did very well in there because of that. That was a big part of it too. Just the overall vibe and energy of the group. So I'm really excited about that, and really excited to see where we take this.
And I saw some of it between the students as much as the students to the coaches. So there was some of that too when they were offering to, you're all were offering to help each other with different aspects of things, and and trying to sort of bring everybody up. That's important to have. And I've seen there's
focus group.
What's that?
You almost get a little focus group,
in a way, yeah.
I built this landing page, rip it apart. Tell me what you guys think, and so you get this counseling that comes not only from the coach, but you're getting other voices as well, so you're seeing different angles and different aspects. You're not just getting one source of information.
Right. And then that gets to play to their expertise. Maybe they see something, maybe they're really good with, grammar or copied content or something. I mean, you are, but say there's something that you're not as good at detail wise that somebody else really picks up on. That's some of the most, and part of, in conversations with Sheena and Zach and Jen and some of the other people behind Atlas Agency Launch Lab at the time, this is one of the reasons for putting it together, is that many of us have been through these different coaching programs, and they got us to a point and they were valuable, but then they only got us to that point. And so this was an effort to kind of step that up to another level, to say, okay, we're going to take you where you are. Maybe you had the benefit of a previous program and investment, maybe you didn't, and try to take you to another level based on what we wish was there in some of these other ones. But the most successful coaching programs that I have seen have a good community element built up around them purposely.
And that's where the growth navigator, even accelerate that. Like the Atlas Agency Launch Lab is the rocket ship, the growth navigator is the fuel. Because now we're plugging you into a network. So it's not just, here are the skills and we're going to help you with them. But now we're also plugging you into, with different people and different offers and things like that, to be able to kind of give you that jump start and get you rolling.
So that the growth navigator is fair to say is kind of that collaboration, all the collaboration and partnership we've been talking about by design, right? By business design. That's what it is.
Yep, exactly.
So you talk about growing that as where your business is going to be in 5 years. Yes, you have your own agency, but that Atlas Growth Navigator is walking this out right now.
Yep, exactly.
So and we'll continue to, and so several of us are a part of that. So that's awesome. All right. Well, is there anything else? So we got a plug for that, and that Atlas Agency Launch Lab is still going. I mean, it's like I said, they've been kind of low key lately, but the training has undergone a huge upgrade, even from what it was. And at least to my knowledge, maybe you can speak a little bit more to it, but what somebody who is, maybe they're new to this whole idea, maybe they're trying to leave that 9 to 5 and they're really ready. They know they got to make an investment. And the hope is they would come over here for that type of guidance that you guys have been putting together. Is that correct?
Yeah. I can only speak to it from my journey. But like there's, different things like CRMs and the snapshots that go with them and stuff like that. All of that was foreign to me. So having that, kind of handed to you, with the training that goes with it, was just huge. That was a big thing for me, was just all the different areas that, because the coaching programs that I've seen that, that talk, they tend to hyper focus. You're going to learn sales. You're going to learn copywriting. You might learn client acquisition, but they never tell you how to put all this together. And the Atlas Agency Launch Lab really focuses on that CEO aspect. and managing those different facets. So like that was huge for me. That was sort of the light bulb moment that were, okay, I don't have to, specialize in this one skill. I have to specialize in management.
Yeah. And these tools come and go. I mean, they'll change. I mean, CRMs like you mentioned that, like Go High Level. I mean, it's still continuing to grow exponentially, but there are others that have gone by the wayside, and maybe Go High Level 2 will go by the wayside at some point.
Yeah. I mean, look at the way, like, it used to be Word Perfect. Then it was Microsoft Word. Now we use Google Doc, at some point there'll be something else, and it'll be the same thing with the CRMs and stuff. So it's taking that 30,000 foot view as opposed to being in the trenches with the minutia and all the button pushing and stuff.
Right. Or for our web design, for instance, we've been picking on them all day. Let's give them a little love. The whole web design concept has greatly evolved. I remember having to put together a website on the essentially Windows Notepad. And getting all the stuff right way back in the 90s, back in the day. I'm an old fart. What can I say? 52 today. So
that's right. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. But yet now you have tools like Elementor and Divix and even ones that are, AI that'll put together your website, or, something like DashClick's Insta sites that are like that,
Yeah. And even the structure of the website has changed. It used to be that you wanted different pages all the time. And now you kind of want it that you just keep scrolling because you want it to have more of that social media feel. That's what people are used to.
Right. Good point. So, all right. Well, cool. So we got actually plugged in for both of the businesses, for certainly Atlas Agency Launch Lab as its training program continues to grow. But if you don't need the whole training program or don't want that yet, Atlas Growth Navigator will meet the needs you do have by connecting you to their network. And
for sure.
As we're doing some prospecting, but then I guess you guys do some other stuff as well. So that's exciting, sales, closing, and whatever different people need. So I appreciate you coming on and really taking part in this. You guys are gonna see JKL Works, my company, we'll be doing some webinars here before too long, and you will see that because of the work that Atlas Growth Navigator will be doing for me. So you will see that work out there. And then if we have our own little small training, maybe we'll figure out a way to merge them together at some point. But ours takes the Success Academy takes more of a 360-degree look at your business. And then if you're ready for something more, we can do what Phil and I did together the other day, and that is run a success blueprint on your business, where I ask you lots of questions, and we dive pretty deeply into what you do. And there will be a digital marketing or digital online type of version coming for that as well. That's a little bit different take, a little bit different questions than what we went through. So lots going on, lots of things growing, but we all are going to need these, collaborations and joint ventures and different things to survive with it. I agree with you. This is really where this is going.
Awesome.
So I appreciate you taking time to come on and do this. Any last thoughts before we get out of here?
No, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I was happy to do so.
Okay. Well, if you all have any questions, then we're available all over social media. What is the websites that are out there? Certainly, Atlas Agency Launch Lab is out. Does Growth Navigator have some things up yet?
So I full disclosure, I do have to finish my website. It's sort of been on the back burner for me because I just do a lot with different landing pages for specific offers. So I haven't put out my website yet. You can find me on Facebook. I do have an account. You can find my personal page, or you can go to the Guided Growth Syndicate Facebook page as well.
And I'm remiss. I did not mention Guided Growth Syndicate enough here. So that is Phil's real company, is Guided Growth Syndicate. That's him. And lovely wife Melanie and everybody else. That there's several people involved with that. So that is what they do. And they do it very, very well. So Guided Growth Syndicate. Let's make sure we get that out there so we get you guys some plugs for doing that. So appreciate everybody watching. If you have any questions, just comment wherever it is that you're watching this. and we will do our best to jump in and answer. Might even pull Phil in to answer some of the questions if they're directed at him. So I will make sure that that they get to him. Appreciate everybody watching, and we will talk to you guys next time.
Thank you.